This is a joint production of Mormon Book Reviews and Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett, and I'm excited to have a joint production with Steve Pynakker. He's the host of Mormon Book Reviews, and he actually interviewed me on this interview on his channel a few months ago. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about why I started Gospel Tangents, as well as I'm going to ask him about Protestantism and how he got interested in Mormonism. So it's going to be a fun conversation. Check it out.
Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I want to thank all of you for the great feedback that I've been getting from you for the last few weeks since I launched this channel. Now, the goal of the channel is to review the books of my bookcase sitting behind me. And also I found out that I'm going to also be reviewing books from authors who are already sending me their stuff, which is very exciting. Part of the structure of the channel, I'll do the book reviews, I'll do an occasional commentary called Quick Takes, but the meat of the program is the interviews. My intention is to interview many of the authors of the books that I have reviewed. And then also I want to interview prominent Mormons and influencers, such as the individual that I'm going to have on today, which I'm very honored to have. One of the people that I've been watching for over 3 years. I've learned a lot about Mormonism and the restoration and history. It's been a wonderful time watching this show, and I would have never imagined that my very first interview would be with the one and only Rick Bennett.
What an intro! Wow, I'm embarrassed almost by that, but anyway, glad to be on your show.
It's been awesome. You know, it's so funny. You and I had the conversation a couple of weeks ago where we kind of introduced ourselves to each other. Mm-hmm. And I reached out to you, and you were so wonderful in how you responded to me. And so we had a conversation, and I worked up the courage to ask you to come onto my show. And so you said, with one caveat. I'm like, well, what is that? You got to give me the opportunity to ask you, how in the heck did you, this evangelical, get so interested in Mormonism and its history? So Here's your chance, Rick. Here's your chance.
I'm always amazed when non-Mormons are interested in Mormon history. And so, what got you into that? That's interesting.
So, it's okay. So it started at the age of 10. I would say about there. I was very interested in Mormonism. Probably encountered it the first time is when we were staying at a Marriott hotel, and I came across the Book of Mormon, and I saw the Arnold Freeberg paintings, and I was enamored by them. And I'm looking at these battles going on, and then I'm looking at this thing that looks like Jesus in the sky, and what's going on here? And I was so fascinated by it. And so that was kind of my first introduction to my parents. Well, it's those people from Utah, and they have a different Bible, and it's different from ours, and just the standard, stereotypical stuff. And so, okay, well then, around this time, about the largest Christian television station in the country, which was located in Chicago, actually aired the Godmakers on their network. And I actually didn't watch it because it seemed kind of scary to me. But what they did was they kind of previewed the series by showing the Godmakers cartoon. So imagine being a little kid and seeing that Godmakers cartoon, which is basically propaganda, right? And having that kind of influencing the way that you see things. But I was still fascinated by it. And so that was that. And then I also have to say that growing up, I watched a lot of Battlestar Galactica reruns. And I was always a very spiritual person from a very young age. So the themes in Battlestar Galactica, they have a lot of spiritual things in there, like the Lost Tribes and Adama. And then you had, various, you had a Satan type character, and you had all this good and evil. And it really spoke to me in a way that Star Wars didn't. Even though I love Star Wars, the spirituality of Battlestar Galactica spoke to me on a deeper level.
Now, do you know that was written by a Mormon?
Well, of course I do.
Okay, good.
Yes. So let me show you part of my book collection is actually on the bottom. I have a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. I have the complete original series.
That's funny.
But yeah, Glenn A. Larson being a Mormon. And of course, I found out that Kobal was actually Kolob. So, they had Kobal in the Battlestar Galactica show. So I had no idea that it it wasn't until high school that I realized that it had all this Mormon doctrine in it. And I thought, no
Yeah.
wonder I liked that show so much, because I've been into Mormonism most of my life.
Well, who knew about Battlestar Galactica was a proselyting tool?
It kind of was, I guess. Yeah. So it was kind of it was pretty wild. So I answered your question.
Yep.
Did I answer? Okay. So I answered your question. So I have a quick question for you.
Okay.
What in the world what caused you to, I reach out to you, you reach out to me, and we talk on the phone. I think we kind of bonded pretty quickly. What made you decide that you were going to take a chance on me and take me under your wing like you have?
Well, you haven't been one of those jerk evangelicals that I encounter all the time.
Okay.
So I will apologize to all the evangelicals, but a lot of you are not very nice, and you were nice. So that's all it takes. Just be nice to me, and I'll be nice to you. So
okay. Well, I appreciate that, and I've been on the bad side. I've seen the bad side of evangelicalism too, so I'm very sensitive to trying to be Christ-like and show compassion and try to show understanding for people that are different from yourself. That's what Christ was all about. And I try to remind my evangelical friends, I've told a few about this, and they're like, well, just be careful. You gotta, well, that's fine as long as you're correcting them. I'm like, no. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to have a conversation. And I really feel like there's a lot that we as evangelicals can learn from the Restoration.
Well, and to be fair, nobody likes to be corrected, and Mormons like to correct a lot of people as well. I know there can be jerk Mormons out there too, and so yeah, nobody wants to be corrected all the time. If you want a real dialogue, I have a great admiration for. I don't know how to say his last name very well. I think it's Richard Muau. He's an evangelical. They do a lot of stuff with BYU and interfaith stuff. And those are people that I just have tremendous respect for. And I appreciate people like that who aren't trying to correct and are trying to understand. And I think if more of us talked with an idea of understanding instead of an idea of, hey, I'm going to convert this person, we could go a long way. So. And that goes for Mormons as well as evangelicals. Don't try to correct everybody. Just be understanding and interested. That's the main thing.
No, amen to that. So just to add one more little thing about me, because this is kind of going to be my introduction to many of the LDS, and that is I do come from an evangelical background, but I had some faith struggles throughout the years, and I've kind of come through the whole spectrum of one's faith journey that you would take. And now I'm coming back into it with my eyes wide open, with a better understanding of what it means to be a person of faith and to be tenderhearted and be humble. And so that's kind of what's led me into that. Now I have a lot of interesting things that have happened to me in the past, but my main thing is that has informed me, and it's allowed me to engage people like you. And again, so many people from the various Restoration branches and Missouri and Utah and everything. They've shown so much Christ-like love towards me that, to me, that's what I'm feeling. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to go with the flow. So that's a little bit of background for us and how we ended up here, right? Yeah. So now I guess the interview begins, Rick.
Well, before you go there, I just want to add one more thing. I just had an interesting Facebook conversation with LDS gentleman. I'll try to keep it a little bit generic, but at any rate, one of his questions to me was, how do you keep your faith knowing all this intellectual stuff? And do you know any LDS authors that speak to you? And I was like, and he named a few, but I'm not going to do any name dropping there. But I said to him, there are some non-LDS authors that I just absolutely love, and I will name drop them. John Dominic Crossan, he's a former Catholic priest. He's in the Jesus Seminar. I could listen to him for hours. John Spong, who's an Episcopal, I guess a former Episcopal priest. I think he just retired. I could listen to him for hours. Bart Ehrman, he's a former evangelical. There's a guy, archaeologist, University of Arizona, William Deaver, Rabbi David Wolpe, I don't know how you say his last name. Those guys, I just think are spiritual giants that I can learn a ton from, and I just have tremendous respect. So, there are LDS people too, but those are some non-LDS people that I really, really admire. So, even we LDS can learn a lot from non-LDS scholars. So.
Yeah, well, those are some giants. They're intellectual giants, and these are people who know a lot, but have on varying levels do have faith, and that's important, and that's a good jumping off point, because where reality and science and the spiritual meet, that's kind of where we need to be. And rather trying to force one into the other, if we can find a happy medium there, we can certainly, I think, live more fulfilled lives, and it'll actually inform our spiritual lives. And I think that's very important. So, well, John, Rick. Oh my goodness, John. Rick.
Yeah, don't get me mixed up with John DeLynn.
I wasn't even thinking about him. Oh boy, they. So, but Rick, I like I said, this has been great, and I'm really enjoying this. And so, I guess I'm just going to get to the interview here. And I guess my first question is, tell me. I want a little background about you. Where were you born, and were you born in the Covenant?
I was born in the Covenant. I was born in Ogden, Utah. And lived in Davis County. Ogden's in Weber County, so if you're not super familiar, but not far from Ogden, till I was about 10. When we were 10, my dad got a promotion to New Hampshire, or as they say, New Hampshire, and we moved to New Hampshire for about 4 years, and that's where I became a huge Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots fan, Bruins fan. So. Then we moved back to Ogden when I was in high school, and I've lived in Utah pretty much the rest of my life, except for, of course, a 2-year mission in Georgia and South Carolina. So
that's very interesting. I spent a little time in Ogden. My sister actually took a job at a Evangelical church in North Ogden.
Oh, okay.
So I did visit. I did walk around, and that was my 2 days in Utah, and I had the opportunity to go to Temple Square. So I've been to your neck of the woods, which is awesome to know. So you're in Utah, and you go to high school, I'm assuming, in everything like.
Yeah, I went to 2 different high schools. One was called Ogden High, and the other one was Bonneville High School. So
now one of the things that I'm probably going to get to in a little bit, but in your high school and perhaps even college, were you involved in sports at all?
So we were, I'm a huge sports fan. So I ran cross country, and I was on the basketball team at Bonneville, and we were the state champs my junior year. My varsity career lasted 39 seconds, but we won state. So, it's one of those things. I always look back at Ogden. I played my freshman year at Ogden High, and the coach told me as we were moving out of the school district, "Oh, I wish you would have stayed. You would have been a starter." And I was like, "Oh, don't tell me that." So it's kind of like, should I have stayed a starter on a bad team, or a bench warmer on a good team? And honestly, I don't know. I didn't like sitting on the bench.
I can imagine. I played basketball as well, and I can understand the temptation. You can always say you were on a state champion. They can't take that away from you.
Right. So yeah, huge into sports, baseball, football, basketball, but yeah, kind of, and then a little bit of tennis. We were big. My brother actually lettered in tennis, and we were big. That was big when John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors and all those guys were good. So I'm sure that dates me a little bit, but I was a huge tennis fan back in the day. So
that was quite big back in the day. I do remember that. So here you are. You're kind of a jock, right? A little bit,
yeah. Kind of.
And you're.
I used to be a former jock.
Okay, a former jock. So now, of course, you go to high school, and then I'm going to assume the timeline is that you go to college, and then you for 1 or 2 years, and then you serve a mission. Would that be the correct timeline?
So, it's funny. I actually went to college during high school. I got tired of sitting on the bench. So my senior year, I went to Weber State halftime, and I actually graduated from high school with a math minor. So yeah, if you look at when I started my junior year to when I graduated, it was about 6 years. But one of those years was in high school, and two of those years were on a mission. So,
Okay. Well, that's
so I kind of
interesting.
graduated in 3 years. But
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. You made a comment to me about you being a math geek. Can you just
yes.
digress and tell me a little bit
Well,
what
you
makes
can
you?
see my math books down there. So I went to college. I majored in math, and then I got my master's degree. Well, I took a 15-year break between my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. I was teaching. Well, my first job out of college was they wanted somebody who had knew a little bit about statistics, and I had just taken statistics as kind of an elective, but I knew enough to do the job, and I did pretty good at it. And then I thought, it took me 4 years or 3 years of college before and a degree before I was like, I kind of like statistics. Maybe I should get a master's degree. I didn't get accepted the first 2 years that I applied, and then I ended up changing jobs and switching to become a kind of a network administrator, computer geek. And I did that for about 8 years. And then my company kind of had a layoff, and I got laid off. And I was sick of computers by then. And one of my coworkers was he hired teachers at a little college in Ogden. I don't even want to name it because it's a terrible place to work. But it got me teaching, and I kind of fell in love with teaching, and I did that for about a year and a half, and then I thought, well, I can do this at Salt Lake Community College, and they were like, we won't hire you unless you have a master's degree. But then they hired me, and so I taught at Salt Lake Community College for about 10 years, and then now I teach at Utah Valley University. In the meantime, I after a 15-year break between my bachelor's and my master's degree, I got a master's degree. So now I'm competent, I guess, to teach statistics. So, and at Utah Valley, they have at least when I started, almost every semester I teach statistics now, and so I really enjoy statistics, and it's a lot of fun. So.
Well, that's okay. So now, so let me see here now. We got a kid who born in Utah, becomes a Red Sox fan, is a sports, is a jock, but he also is a math geek, well educated. This is an interesting picture that we're developing here.
And how did he get in Mormon history?
Well, I was going to lead to that, but before we do that, because in this period of time, of course, you would have served your mission. So I'd like to know. Where you served your mission and how did you enjoy it?
So I got called to, it was a South Carolina mission, but we covered about a third of Georgia, kind of the eastern part of Georgia there. So I actually started and ended my mission in Georgia. Started at Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is just southwest of Savannah, about 25 miles. It's funny because everywhere in Georgia, almost everywhere I was at a military base. So I started at Fort Stewart, Georgia. Then I went to Sumter, South Carolina, where they've got an Air Force base there, Shaw Air Force Base. Then I went to Spartanburg, which was kind of a college town. That was the only town that wasn't military. Then I went to Columbia, which is Fort Jackson, and then I ended up in Augusta and Fort Gordon. So I spent a lot of time around a lot of military people, and have to say I loved the winters in South Carolina and Georgia. It snowed twice. One time it snowed and melted, and then the other time it snowed. And it stayed cold for about a week, and they pretty much shut down the state. And I was like, oh man, this is nothing. What are you talking about? But I will say they didn't have any snowplows. And so the roads were actually even though it was only like 3 or 4 inches, it stayed on the roads because they didn't have any way to get off the roads. And, that was kind of funny because we get tons of snow in Utah, and that was just nothing. But yeah, it was great. Bible Belt. We met a lot of Baptists and Pentecostals, and and my mission president was, I think it was the one before, but my mission president kept it, where we had to we had 180 scriptures that we were supposed to memorize. They had a telestial, terrestrial, and celestial level. And so I was pretty good at memorizing those scriptures, and they came in handy. And I confess that I enjoyed what we called Bible bashing with, we'd get with preachers, whatever, and, hammer out the scriptures. And mostly it was proof texting, where you were taking scriptures out of context. But it was fun. I enjoyed that. That was kind of right up my alley. But towards the end of my mission, I had a couple of really good companions, and they, rather than Bible bash, they used the scriptures in a way that was more loving than more contentious. And I was just like, wow. I was just so impressed. I still remember Elder Griffiths, and he doesn't even remember me, but he laid such a foundation for me, and how, if you're really going to try to convert somebody, you do it through love. You don't do it through intellect. And I will say, I only spent about 3 weeks with him. I think that's why he doesn't remember me, but I sure remember him. And I've actually caught up with him, and he's like, now who are you? And I was just like, wow, you changed my mission, and you don't even know who I am. But it's funny how some of those things work. People who you don't realize the impact you have on, and other people are like, wow, how impactful that was. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Steve Pynakker, host of Mormon Book Reviews. In our next conversation, I asked him what's the difference between Protestants and evangelicals.
Yeah, so I think the best way to look at it is that within Protestantism, every single Protestant denomination has what you could call an evangelical / charismatic wing. Okay, some evangelicals are charismatics, all charismatics are evangelicals.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe for just $5 a month at patreon.com/gospeltangents, and you can hear the entire interview before everybody else. If you'd like to watch the entire video for just $8 a month, you can either subscribe on YouTube, Patreon, or my website, gospeltangents.com. Just click the yellow subscribe button, and I'll add you to our Gospel Tangents Insiders group so that you can see entire videos. For those interested in a PDF transcript, you can subscribe at either Patreon or on my website. For just $10 a month, I'll send you a PDF as soon as it's complete. If you'd like a copy of the paperback as well as a PDF, just sign up for $20 a month at either Patreon or my website, gospeltangents.com. Of course, you can buy individual transcripts at amazon.com and just do a search for Gospel Tangents Interview, and you can see all the things that we have there. Don't forget to support Gospel Tangents with an awesome t-shirt like one of these. You can subscribe at Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. Get our latest updates at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Also, you can get our Twitter updates at Gospel Tangents. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got more of our great videos. Thanks again.